I was watching the show on Netflix, Starting Five, and the second season is just absolute fire. So good. I love the players they have on it, and two of the players in particular are two old friends that have a ton of history, and that's Kevin Durant and James Harden. We were on their ass, is basically what he said. Kevin Durant says LeBron James rejoiced when James Harden got traded because he was scared of the OKC Thunder. We are here to see if Kevin Durant was actually right. Was LeBron actually relieved James Harden left? Basically, do you think they were going to be a dynasty?
See, I think they kind of have a small point because I think those next 2 years are pretty wide open for them.
Sure.
And my reasoning behind that is they're in 2012, that the season in which this happened, they beat the Spurs in 6 games in the Western Conference Finals, I believe. And
Yep.
then the very next year, obviously Harden's traded. They signed Serge Ibaka. Well, they extend Serge Ibaka to keep that core. And then obviously Russell Westbrook gets injured during, I think, either before the playoffs or during the playoffs. I want to say it was during the playoffs, and then it was
Yeah.
KD was just kind of left alone. Um, if that scenario still happened and Kevin and James Harden was still in the mix, I think they still possibly are contenders, because I think Harden would then take that leap that he did with Houston in
Sure.
the playoffs, which I know
Yeah.
sounds weird because James Harden and the playoffs are like synonymous with each other at him being bad. But I think more so with Harden, it's in terms of Houston, it's mainly he was always overexerted. But I also think it's like the expectation. If they had no expectations and then Harden just immediately like becomes a superstar in the playoffs, I could see that confusing teams.
Yeah.
But assuming health and saying instead Russell Westbrook doesn't get injured, I think they could possibly win that championship in 2023. I'm sorry, not 2023, 2013.
Yeah.
And then the very next year in 2014, you don't really get the Spurs redemption tour and all this other stuff. And I really
This
think
is
that they could,
KD MVP year in real life.
yeah, in real,
In
yeah.
the
So
playoffs.
I think like you could possibly have them win back-to-back championships there.
Oh my God.
And then even in 2015, you could even argue that
Yeah.
that Warriors team, because if you remember the Warriors in 2015, they had a bunch of, they would say they got really lucky throughout all of those series because all of the
They
main
would.
players that they
You
faced.
would.
Well, they were also like a Cinderella story.
No,
I
no,
mean, there was
that was
still
a
the narrative about jump shooting teams and everything. They were a bit surprising at that time. It was
No, but it's not
starting
only
20.
that. It's not only that. It's actual in series. All of the star players, or I think in core players within
Sure.
every single series that they faced that year, they had an important piece of the opponent's team. Their important piece got injured, and then
Sure.
they won those series like all the way through the finals. So you can really say that a lot of people going into 2016 said that Warriors team wasn't a true championship team because of all of those injuries. And then
Right,
that's
right.
when you had the
Until
73-9.
2016 started,
Yeah.
there was talks about the fluke. And then they started 2016 24-1, and then now it's when people were like, okay, maybe it's not a fluke.
Yeah. So if you have a healthy Oklahoma City Thunder with that core intact, and they could, I could see them winning a couple championships there. I wouldn't say that they would win 3 or 4 straight because I don't believe that, but I do think that they more than likely win at least one, maybe two.
All right, I guess I'll respond to that, and we can see where Russell stands between the two of us.
Okay.
But I feel I disagree so hard, especially where the seasons you said. First off, I don't think anybody's beating Miami in 2013. LeBron was just different. LeBron was insane. That was
Sure.
I think his absolute peak as an individual player, hitting 56% of his shots, averaging like 20, 27, 8 and 7 or something like that. Like just ridiculous numbers, shooting 40% from three-point range. They won 27 straight regular season games. And honestly, at that point, I thought they might beat the Lakers, the 1972 Lakers 33 game winning streak. They just seemed unbeatable for a while. And then
True.
2013 comes along. Obviously, they do what they do to the San Antonio Spurs. I don't think there'd be any answer from a still very very young OKC team because again, when they first made it to the NBA Finals in 2012, they were all in their early 20s. They're only a year older the very next season. And then in 2014, I do think, because I believe in Miami, I think you're still getting that redemption arc, from the San Antonio Spurs. Maybe at that point they'd be better. My problem with this team is like, I don't like it when people act like it's a safe assumption that they would have become a dynasty. They would have been there, and they would have been there consistently. But James Harden, even going back to his Sixth Man of the Year days, was having issues with performing well in the playoffs.
True.
And plus, I just, like, we saw that nucleus, like, work to an extent, but, like, is James Harden going to be able to become the same guy? Like, sure, maybe he gets that opportunity to, like you said, Dario. But once Russell Westbrook comes back and you have KD, Westbrook, and Harden, are you going to try to have them all on the floor simultaneously and all be what they eventually become as MVP winners on their own? I don't know if that would really work. And so I do think their best shot would have been the 2014 to 2015 season, because even though the Warriors won the championship, that was far from the best Warriors team we had seen. And then obviously for all the years where KD is not on the Warriors, now the Warriors are weakened and now things kind of open up there. So I think they'd probably get one championship somewhere in there, but this whole assumption that they're just going to be like a dynasty and stuff, I just don't see it. I do believe though that LeBron was relieved. I mean, this is the same LeBron that looked over at Kawhi and was like, oh damn, I can see him being stoked that, okay, I don't have to deal with these guys anymore. That part I do believe.
Could I combat his argument real quick, Russ? I just have a couple things. For 2013, you mentioned the Miami Heat, and it sounded amazing, Johnny, but that was all regular season. If you remember the playoffs,
sure.
In the playoffs particularly, they went 7 games against the Pacers, and one of the main reasons in that series is because Dwayne Wade was not Dwayne Wade anymore. He had his knee injuries. He was in and out of games. Like, he wasn't the same guy. And then a big issue was Roy Hibbert. Roy Hibbert being there and being the defensive
shot
presence
blocker
that he was, shot blocker, was a big issue for them. Now imagine Serge Ibaka, who was I think he was the leader in blocks that year. So I think that would have been them being a year older, and also like the redemption tour too. Like they just lost the year before. They're gonna want their revenge. I feel like Miami kind of got lucky with getting with how it happened in 2013, a little bit, and that might be a little bit of LeBron hate. But then 2014, the Spurs in particular, they go 6 games. Yeah, they go 6 games against OKC in the Western Conference Finals and win. Now imagine if James Harden is there. You don't have the Spurs losing the year before. I could totally see that series flipping, and then OKC's back in the finals. And then obviously that's
It's good points. I think you're making good points. I like a lot of them. The one part where I'd kind of push back is like, I feel like in hindsight, it's one of those teams that are going to be lost in history. Like when you see that Indiana team and you see the players who are on the roster, it does not sound the same in 25 compared to the way it did then. Because that team was tough. That team was strong. I don't know what the hell happened to Roy Hibbert, but in 2013, he was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Yeah. And then in 2014, he finished second in the DPOY, and then something happened to his brain, and all of a sudden he lost all of his talent from the monster.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah. It's what. So talk about an era that the decades are completely different from one to another. The beginning of the 2010s is completely different to the end of the 2010s.
Even if that's true, it's like Monstar stole his talent. He looked like Charles Barkley.
That's definitely fair. That's definitely fair.
I mean, like, so I get what you're saying.
What's even worse is he has a YouTube channel. Yeah, I think it's him. He has a YouTube channel where he talks about all these times he got dunked on. Like, it's pretty embarrassing. It's pretty embarrassing YouTube channel.
But even Paul George, was different then. Because at that time in history,
pre-leg injury.
Yeah, I was going to say he lost
pre-leg injury, so the athleticism was crazy. But, like, seeing him like dunk on dudes and step up and roaring at the crowd in the playoffs, we thought he was a big game performer, and then somehow that changed. And so that's my only pushback, is like that Indiana team was actually pretty good. So the fact that they challenged him, people were saying this might be the team that rises up to be the rival to Miami that we didn't think they would have for the foreseeable future. And then they forgot how to play basketball. So
the counterpoint to the Thunder players, were always bad playoff players, and they always will be bad playoff players.
Well, I won't say
Just
that.
like, just I mean,
Harden
hey,
was.
to be
Harden
fair,
was.
Harden was
And
there
Westbrook.
to a lot, yeah, to a large extent. Westbrook was like these guys.
And KD
weren't-
had his moments, yeah.
Yeah, and KD had his moments when he had good players around him, but
No, I was agreeing. He had his moments where he was bad too. We agree.
Yeah.
We agree.
he, but I think with them, if they all stay together, see, this is the interesting part. Is like, I wonder if OKC ever would have kept them together because of how cheap they were at that point, and because of what we know now with how they build stuff, like. And that's where it gets interesting. Is Sam Presti to me is what makes me think, oh, this team could probably win a championship, to like, oh, maybe they could win a few. Because from after that Heat championship, and if you want to argue that 2013 Heat championship, but definitely after that, until the 2016 Warriors, it's pretty wide open because the Heat aren't really the same team as we talked about with Dwayne Wade. And the Spurs of 2014 do not happen if the Thunder are in their way to smack them up before they get to the finals, before Miami can have their miracle moment. So I think that's what I wanted to ask Johnny. Do you think the Spurs, or do you think the Thunder would be the Western Conference Finals representative at any point during that time?
Yeah. I mean, I think probably they would be ready by 2014, 2015. At that point, them having more experience over Golden State, assuming they're healthy, which is a big assumption because there was kind of rotating injuries for a little bit during that time. But yeah, no, I can absolutely see them representing. And then even Golden State, I mean, we had an epic conference finals matchup without James Harden being involved, in 2016. And so, no, I definitely think there would be some instances. I think it's a big assumption. And the reason why I have a hard time just making that assumption is because we've made that assumption with a lot of these players when they've been in super teams since then. Like Brooklyn. Like that Brooklyn was supposed to be a
that's
great
not
team.
organic. This was an organic team. This team would become a super team because they
were
all
young.
grew together.
I mean,
but they all grew to play together. Like they all started in the league together. They didn't. I mean, if you really want to go old school with it, they didn't. They are an organizational super team. They are not
they grew
free
together,
agent player
but
empowerment super team.
Did they really grow together? They didn't have time to grow. They were still.
Well, that's my
early
point.
20s.
This is the argument we're having: is whether they'd get through this point.
But that is part of my counter argument. Is I just don't know if that would work. I don't know if there isn't going to be egos. I don't know if they're going to start looking at each other and being like, "Hey, man, I'm good enough to take the lead here." I just imagine that's going to step in at some point. I don't know if they all develop the same way. Then the biggest thing for me is just the strength of the competition. I don't know why the hell we're just acting like we're counting out the San Antonio Spurs. If you want to act like OKC's ready, fine. But that's still going to be one tough freaking out because that team was
Definitely
deep. That team played well. They were cohesive and experienced.
But they're not as motivated if they don't make it in 2013.
They went.
I think they make it in 2013, so that's part of the disagreement.
But I don't know. I think that would be a bloodbath in that Western Conference hypothetical finals. I think that would be an absolute bloodbath.
I just don't know.
They are. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't know how we could say that the Spurs would win if we see with Harden they lose in 2012, and then 2013 obviously there's injuries.
Well, you guys were driving the whole narrative about motivation and revenge and all that sort of thing. San Antonio's coming back knowing what they have to beat with this OKC team, and again they did look better in 2013 in comparison to 2012.
Definitely.
But they didn't get
the 2014 team is not the same 2014 team. I just don't think it would be the same because the butterfly effect changes everything, and they were motivated in 2014 because of the horrific finals that had happened before then. They competed, but it was horrific because of what had happened with the Ray Allen shot, and then they were completely gassed in Game 7. And that's why they came back the next year and said, we're smacking everybody.
So
I don't know if that
so
happens.
They get eliminated a different way, and suddenly they're not motivated. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like
yes.
they're still gonna be there.
Yes,
I don't know,
if they don't get eliminated by the Ray Allen shot, I think it's a different level. I just think it's very
I
different.
don't think we're giving enough respect to Kawhi Leonard, Greg Popovich, Tim Duncan.
So even to that point, then you're not giving respect to Sam Presti and the teams that he's built across
I'll give
the
it
decade.
to Presti, but the players still got to do it. And these
But the
players
players
have
will
had
always have
opportunities where they could have done it and they didn't do it, especially these guys. And they're still young. Like, they would still be very young at that point. I'm not saying you're absolutely wrong. All my argument is people, including Kevin Durant, act like it's a sure bet that they would have been dominating the league and it was about to be theirs. And I'm like, maybe if it was a more open league at that point, I could go for that, but not at that time with the strength that the other rosters had, man. No way. The Warriors were just starting to rise up. San Antonio was there. Miami Heat was there, and LeBron was in his prime.
Yeah, sorry, Tim Duncan, man. I don't think you're making another finals if they stay together.
Damn.
I really don't. Sorry,
Let us
Tim
know
Duncan.
in the comments if you agree with that. I don't know about that one.